Yesterday, the State Department of Education released the FSA validity study. And a quality study includes both qualitative and quantitative data points to paint a complete picture. The study completed by a group called Alpine was released yesterday. It was 186 pages, and staff has reviewed the 186-page document. They also released an 18-page executive summary, which will be available to you and has been made available already. And some of the concerns, some of the things I'm worried about, quite frankly, is that the board here in Palm Beach has had a long history of studying this issue of assessment and over-testing and has taken a strong position on that. Some of the concerns that came up were the questions about the test assessments administration. Many of you covered the negative components of the computer-based portion of those assessments. You know how we struggled with that and that those assessments were very problematic. What we found in the report also is a lack of alignment between Florida standards and those that appear to be on the test. In just a few minutes, Keith Oswald, our Chief Academic Officer, and Dr. David Christensen will provide further detail about that misalignment. It's very problematic, and I think it's going to become clear that parents, teachers, and community members should be concerned. And the use of Florida Standards Assessment, FSA scores, to evaluate both the performance of students and teachers and schools. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over for some further context and detail, and more importantly, history of Palm Beach County, and that's our Chief Academic Officer, Keith Oswald.
Thank you, Dr. Vosa, and good afternoon. Just to set a little context, and many of you have been around here for the last couple of years, our school board has taken an active role in the community by declaring a resolution to the concerns of high-stakes testing in Florida and here locally. That occurred first in April of 2012 and again in September of 2014. And what led up to the September 2014 resolution was the concern about the heavy movement of implementation of a brand new standards and a brand new test without the time for teachers to learn the standards, without time for teachers to actually understand the new test itself, and to give teachers time to really work through those nuances. As well, at the same time, we were faced with a large scale of computer-based testing. So there was a lot of concerns around the infrastructure. Did we have the capabilities to handle all those issues? So the board did issue this resolution for a suspension and delay of the implementation of the FSA. We heard a large cry from our community and concerns in support of the board's resolution, and our board took a step further to actually go out and do these community meetings. And many of you were out there over the course of the year. I had the pleasure of working through all 10 of those that we had throughout our community, hearing the concerns. We took it another step further. We also put out a survey to our community to see were they in support of our board's resolution. And close to over 85 to 90% of the results back came in support of the suspension, to hold off on this, to ask our legislators to take some action. That led up to the actual test administration. And as you all know, when that administration occurred, we did hit a number of issues. We're in constant communication from many of you here in the media of were we testing today, were we not. Myself personally going out to a number of test sites to see some of the challenges our students felt when the screen went blank. I remember being at Dreyfus and observing a test administration, and this one girl where her test just went blank and completely upset, worrying about the results. This really played into our concerns leading up to that administration. So because of this, we know that other districts felt and saw these same issues. The legislature took the action of having the Florida Department of Education to do a validation study. Thus, that's what was released yesterday, and we all have been waiting in anticipation to what occurred from this study. We do have a number of issues and concerns that the state has still said this test is valid despite what's in the report, and we did take some time to go through that. I'm going to ask Dr. David Christensen, Deputy Superintendent, to come up to talk more specifically about now the report which led up to this.
Good afternoon. We did not want to point out these concerns with being clear on pointing out resolutions, how we would solve these problems and what recommendations we would make to the state. Our board is very committed in solving these problems and issues and not just being one to voice concerns without having a way to solve it. We're committed, our board is also committed to providing our students, teachers, and community with an equitable system, a fair system. And our board is also committed to reducing testing for kids. We feel our students are over-tested, and part of this process is to reduce testing. So specific to this 186-page report, I want to have everyone look to page 36 specifically, because I think when our teachers and students worked this year to focus on standards-based instruction, they were basing that on the Florida standards. And if you look at page 36, you see very clearly that this particular test might have matched up to Utah or some other state, but did not have a match to our Florida standards here in the state of Florida. For example, at the third grade level in ELA, you had 33% of the test did not match up to the standards that our teachers and students were working very hard and diligently on. So to us, that's unacceptable. The second piece is the problematic computer-based testing. And the third piece is the use of FSA results to dictate school grades and student performance. So what we are recommending as a resolution to this is a clear legislative platform that our board has outlined, and I'm not going to outline the whole platform for you. We will answer some questions about it, but one particular resolution addresses all three of these concerns. And that's the fact that we need to reconsider what tests we're using for our students. Why not look at a national assessment like the PSAT or the SAT, which is nationally standardized, it's a nationally normed test, and by the way, it's a paper and pencil test. This matches up clearly 100% to the Florida standards. This test is not computer-based, it's a paper-pencil test. We would not have the problematic computer-based testing. And finally, it's a fair and equitable way to judge school performance, because if you look at the PSAT and SAT, it looks at critical reading, it looks at writing, it looks at math. So we believe that particular resolution to use the PSAT or SAT in lieu of the FSA would be a natural way to solve this problem, and not have a test that doesn't even match up to what our teachers and students work so hard to implement. So thank you. I believe at this time we're going to go ahead and open it up to some questions
Because we're recording, guys, you need to ask them into the mic. Anybody have a question?
Okay, so what the resolution you're advocating, is this, I haven't had a good chance to look at it, is this the so-called Seminole solution, the Seminole County solution?
I don't know if it matches up to what Walt Griffin and Seminole County are exactly, but I think it's similar in that if you look at grades 7 through 11, that we could look at preliminary SAT and SAT to measure what they call critical reading, writing, and math, and this would be in lieu of the FSA. Now, this doesn't solve the K-6 issue. We would still have to look at FSA for those levels, but because we have a test that clearly doesn't match up to the standards that we're working on, because we have obviously computer-based glitches and issues problematic to our kids' success, because we don't want to test our students on their digital literacy. We want to test them on whether or not they understand the content of the standards. That's what this is about. How that matches up exactly to what Seminole, I think it's very similar, but obviously Palm Beach, our board is committed to a balanced and equitable approach to this testing.
But didn't the state reject a nationally normed test because it didn't match up with our standards in the state?
I can't speak to exactly what Commissioner Stewart said in regards to that. I don't know that it was a formal rejection. I think it needs to be reconsidered. I actually believe that there is more coherence and alignment between those nationally standardized tests and our Florida standards than obviously what we have here. And also to attach school grades to this doesn't make sense because obviously there's a lack of alignment.
How realistic is this to happen, and what do you have to do to make this happen?
I think what we need to do is go to directly to our legislators. If our DOE and State Board of Ed do not want to hear our voice from the students and the teachers at the school level and the district level, we have to take this out to our legislators, similar to the recent House bill, that we need to make some changes. We realize that this school year, we are going to take the FSA. We understand that. I think what we're looking at as far as this platform is the school year 2017.
Could you just clarify, these results in this county had the little impact in the third grade, right? Because you chose not to use these, and only have impact on like the algebra EOC, right?
That is correct. So there was some flexibility given by the state. Our concerns still lie in the fact that teacher evaluations are going to be tied to this. The commissioners come out and stated that they are still going to pursue school grades. So we're still going to be measured, and as Dr. Christensen said, at the school level and at the teacher level on some of the standards that were not taught here by our teachers.
Maybe I missed this. Have you guys already gone to the DOE to ask them this, or when do you guys plan on making these steps?
We have a legislative platform that we're taking forward and we're making the DOE aware of, and we're also going directly to the governor and the DOE with a 5-point in the next few weeks regarding some of these possible resolutions.
I just want to add one more piece. I strongly encourage you to really take a look at least the executive summary, because if you look at the executive summary, there's many other points in there that give us concern here at the school district and how these tests are being used. It even says in the findings on the test administration itself that the administration was problematic and that it was widespread. Yet, we still went to a place where we're validating this test. And Alpine themselves said that the FSA did not meet the normal rigor and standardization expected with a high-stakes assessment program like the FSA. Yet we're still making decisions that are going to impact teachers, students, and schools. So that is really want to make sure that you take the time to look at all of the pieces laid out in that executive summary.
If this doesn't get approved, what's your plan B?
If what doesn't get approved.
The plan for changing the form of testing to the PSAT and SAT?
Well, obviously, we're going to do what we need to do. I mean, if the FSA, but we just want to point out really serious concerns that can't be swept under the rug. They're very serious because our teachers and students are working very hard to learn and grow in new standards and new assessments, and we just want a fair and equitable process, and we believe we have to work with our legislators and DOE to make that happen.
And if this does get underway, how do you think it will affect the amount of time spent on testing with students and teachers having to prep kids for these tests rather than focus on their day-to-day classroom routine?
In terms of shifting, you mean to like PSAT, SAT, or? Well, if you look at the preliminary SAT and SAT, these are 3-hour tests. So it would actually dramatically increase the amount of teaching and learning that could occur rather than have a 6 or 8 or 10 segmented multi-piece test that's literally goes from March to May. Some of our schools literally, because of the computer-based testing, have to rotate students in a way that does impact quality of instruction and how much. So when you think about the PSAT, SAT, there'd be less time for the actual testing, and that we'd be able to focus on what matters, which is growing and learning for students in the content areas. Thank you.